Hi everyone, and welcome to Studio Jake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. Today I want to begin by saying apologies. If you hear any crashing or hammering, there is some construction going on in the apartment above me. So I apologize for that. So if you hear any no, Los Angeles is not falling into the ocean thanks to the San Andreas fault line. It is because there is really loud construction going on and trucks are backing up and making loud beeping noises. So that is what you are hearing. But neither here nor there. I want to talk about the upcoming MCU panel. We've gotten some rumors a couple of years ago, several YouTubers reported on this, that the X-Men are getting a name change as they enter the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, because of rights issues with 20th Century Fox at the time, the MCU wasn't allowed to introduce the X-Men. They had a deal for Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, but they were trying to get Beast from the X-Men, but that ultimately failed because for a while Beast worked with the West Coast Avengers, and there was some back and forth on it. But then Disney bought 20th Century Fox, promptly renamed it 20th Century Studios, and of course we saw Professor X get his first appearance in the MCU, albeit as a variant in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So a lot of people are wondering, hey, are the mutants going to pop in? We do know that the term mutant was used during WandaVision. So, and also Elizabeth Olsen, who plays Scarlet Witch, she has used the term mutant to describe her character, I mean. So, what's going on with this? Well, Deadline seemingly confirms that the X-Men will have a name change. And I think it's interesting, ahead of their panel at the San Diego Comic-Con, which is doing these stupid rules for the vaccine and regarding the pandemic and whatnot. So, I am not attending, not for that reason. It's just in San Diego, and with gas prices the way they are, there's no way I could afford to drive there, and a hotel, and tickets, and whatnot. You really think they're going to give me a press pass, please? I have gotten press passes before, but usually to smaller conventions. And by the way, whenever I go to these conventions, I always try to buy things from the vendors, so the independent creators there make some money, because they're not paid to be there. They have to sell their stuff to be there. So I always try to at least buy postcards or stickers, anything that I can afford to promote these indie creators. Now anyway, back to the MCU, possibly introducing the X-Men. Well, it does seem like they are going to make some sort of X-Men announcement, as they said that Disney Plus is going to be getting Logan, one of the first SJW Marvel films, along with Deadpool and Deadpool 2. I've not seen the second Deadpool as the writing of this. I've only seen the first one, but I'm looking forward to seeing it, I guess. But neither here nor there. We're going to see some interesting changes in the MCU moving forward. Now that most of their big star Avengers, they're going to want to utilize the X-Men, because as far as A-list superheroes, that's all that's left. The Spider-Man home trilogy has run its course. Sony seems to be doubling down on Spider-Man content. Sony still owns the film rights to Spider-Man and several of his villains, as you can see, because they're not making Spider-Man movies, they're making villain movies for some stupid reason. Anyway, Deadline seems to confirm that the X-Men are getting a name change. So I'm going to read from this article from Deadline, which was being shared around a lot on Twitter. It says, let's see, the article is called Comic-Con 2022, What to Expect from Marvel, Dwayne Johnson and Those Dragon Slayers on HBO. It is written by Lynette Rice and Anthony De Alessandro. Apologies if I mispronounced that. So, the second paragraph. Marvel shouldn't disappoint with sneak peeks of Black Panther Wakanda Forever and the upcoming She-Hulk Attorney at Law for Disney+. But it's not expected to shower Hall H with an embarrassment of riches like it did in 2019. Some sources believe Marvel is saving it all up from Disney's fan convention D23 during the second weekend of September, specifically in regards to new projects. there's still stuff we haven't seen, specifically the Fantastic Four reboot, which originally was going to be directed by Spider-Man No Way Home director, but he has since backed out of the project. Mayor Shala Ali and the Blade. Once again, I apologize if I mispronounced that name. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, due May 5th of next year. The Marvels, and the Mutants! The Mutants! What? What insanity is this? What are the Mutants? The Mutants are a race of beings with superpowers. They're born specifically with the X gene, according to the Marvel Comics, as well as the 20th Century Fox films. Now, this is really bothering me because previously Kevin Feige had hinted that they were going to change the name of the X-Men because the name X-Men is not inclusive enough. We have to support, as Critical Drinker says, they have to support the message, comrades. They have to support this weird sort of intersectionality and social justice nonsense that is being pushed by weirdos on Twitter and other social media outlets. Even though these social media weirdos, they do not buy comic books. They've probably have never seen the movies, or that's all they have done. They've seen the movies, played a few video games. It was these SJWs pushing the terrible Batfleck version of Batman for Zack Snyder's films and whatnot, Batman vs. Superman, Justice League, etc. So it does not surprise me, like Zack Snyder caved to these weirdos, it doesn't surprise me that Marvel is caving to these weirdos. Marvel has been going woke probably since 2012. They went woke way faster than DC. DC actually kind of tried to hold on, especially when it came to Batman. But since 2016, they've caved because, Orange Man bad and everything in between. But now, this is just dumb to me. Why is it X-Men or no more? It makes no freaking sense to me. I know it's so sad to see the X-Men have evolved from sort of this fable about how people who are different, people who are being persecuted, can still help society, be good society, and eventually accepted into society. But now it's sort of evolved in sort of this SJW intersectionality where they're mixing in all the weird TikTok nonsense that's going on, and they're eliminating key aspects of certain characters. So they changed, even though X-Men already introduced homosexual characters such as North Star, they're turning Iceman gay. They tried to turn Colossus gay in the Ultimates, which is one of the reasons I don't like Ultimate X-Men. I did like Ultimate Spider-Man at the start, but I thought it ended dumb, especially the Peter Parker character arc. That was kind of one of the first times we saw seeds of the SJW and woke stuff being planted into Marvel. Was they used sort of the Ultimate Comics as an experiment for that. We saw not only that, we saw Nightcrawler, who was always, besides Daredevil, probably one of the most prominent Catholic Christian characters in the X-Men. He's now renounced his faith and is starting his own religion, all in the name of woke the diversity, which is not real diversity, it's forced. For all you weirdos who are going to put in the comments, the X-Men were always woke, they were always politically correct. That is so stupid. Yes, it kind of evolved into that with new writers, but with Stan Lee and Chris Claremont and other famous X-Men writers, it wasn't meant to be sort of this thing to push woke diversity. And there is evidence of this. Stan Lee was asked this question, like, did you mean for Professor X to be Martin Luther King Jr. and for Magneto to be Malcolm X? And he flat out says no. He goes, it was just a story about people who were different from just normies in society. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. And he said it evolved into that over time. Professor X was never meant to be Martin Luther King Jr. Magneto was never meant to be Malcolm X. For one thing, that's kind of an insult to those characters and also those historical figures. Why would you do that? Magneto is, by all accounts, a terrorist. He does not deserve, he does not deserve our sympathy. He does not deserve our empathy. He is a mass murderer. He has done it multiple times in the comic books. Now, he's nuanced. He has things about him that turned him into a tragic villain, but he does not deserve 1 ounce of our empathy or sympathy. And I think that's so stupid because, you know, Malcolm X was a man who, he was a civil rights leader, and yes, he did advocate for punching back and whatnot, but whenever he went to Mecca, I believe, and he had a religious experience, and that changed him, and he died for those beliefs. And I think that it's an insult to Malcolm X to say, oh, Magneto is based on him. That's ridiculous, and it's silly, and it's fraudulent. And same with Professor X and Martin Luther King Jr. I think that you shouldn't make those kinds of comparisons to them. Now, some superheroes are based on real life characters. I know for a while the characters in Sandman were they were all based on punk rockers or rock and roll superstars and what. Now it's changed because Neil Gaiman, his check from Netflix cleared, so he's totally changed his reasoning behind why he created certain characters and he named them after, or made their personification and whatnot, because like I said, the check from Netflix cleared, and you're going to see this here. What I don't understand with this is, okay, you want to say X-Men isn't inclusive enough, so we're going to rename it the Mutants, which is stupid. That's what they are. That's not the name of their team. They should, what I would do, if I was Kevin Feige, and I'm thinking, okay, how can I split the baby here? Because I'm going to alienate fans who like the classic X-Men, you know, those of us who actually pay money, if I change the name from the X-Men, but I'm also going to anger social media mobs on Twitter, and I'm too much of a coward just to tell them to go away because they don't actually, you know, pay the bills and keep the lights on here. So what I would do is, there's already established teams within the X-Men universe. There is the X-Force, there's the X-Factor. Heck, you could even take half of one of the comics, called them the Extreme. You know, the New Mutants, Generation X. There's all these other teams that they could have said, hey, listen, 20th Century Fox, they did 7 movies with X-Men in the title. So what we want to do is, we just want to do something a little different. So we're going to use the name X-Force, or like I said, X-Factor. And that way it's something that the fans are already used to, they're already connected to, and they can say, okay, yeah, we totally get that, we're behind you there. But no, they have to virtue signal and say, look at us, we're obeying the message, comrade. And it's just so stupid, it's ridiculous. And I just want to say, the X-Men is not made because they were not named because it personified the fact that when the team was founded, there was 5 originals. It was Cyclops, Marvel Girl, Iceman, Angel, Beast, and of course Professor X led the team. It wasn't because there were more men on the team. It was because the men, and X-Men was short for mankind, which is what you call the human race. You know, it's not like, I remember a couple years back, a woman was doing at a Q&A with Canadian dictator Justin Trudeau, and she said, you know, mankind, and he said, well, we like to say peoplekind. He just couldn't wait to mansplain, you know, the whitest white person who ever whited just couldn't wait to mansplain to a woman about peoplekind. Later he backtracked and said that he was joking. He wasn't joking. It's ridiculous. And so anyway, back to the X-Men, it's just that it is a short for a nickname for humanity. And that is what they were trying to capture, was that if you look at mutant history throughout the X-Men, how they're treated and mistreated, they're saying, we are not just mutants, we are part of humanity. Now, Magneto and company, they want to use their power to say, no, we're superior, right? Magneto calls mutants Homo superior, where, you know, humans are Homo sapiens. So he calls mutants Homo superior as a way to mock humanity. And I think even in the Ultimates, their organization was called the Brotherhood of Mutant Supremacy. But all that to say, I just think that it's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely stupid that Marvel is caving to this. X-Men was something important, and it already had a good message. It didn't need all these rewrites where, you know, they're starting to do this thing where Colossus and Shadowcat always had kind of a romance. He was Russian, she is Jewish, and now now that relationship is all gone. Well, now you see them aging up Colossus. They're starting to give him gray hair, and a lot of people think it's either because they want to make Shadowcat a lesbian, or they want to copy the Ultimate Comics and make Colossus gay. And so it would be weird if he dated someone who was too much younger than him, right? That would be just a little too weird. So we're going to age him up a lot. You know, we also see this where they're turning X-23. They're changing. They're starting to tell people to call her the Wolverine. She's not the Wolverine. Logan is the Wolverine. If she is truly a good character, she should be allowed to have her own identity. If you don't want to call her X-23, fine, give her a different name. But, you know, to stand on these legacy characters because the people who created X-23, which, by the way, X-23 did not originate in the comic books. X-23 originated in X-Men Evolution, which was an animated show that came out around the time, I think it was in between X-Men and X2, X-Men United. It came out on Kids WB, believe it or not actually on Fox. It was on, I think Fox actually did help with the animation and the casting, but it aired on Kids WB. Why? I guess maybe it was because Batman used to air on Fox and then it moved over to Warner Brothers, even though Warner Animation did the animation, it aired on Fox Kids. Whatever the case may be, the point is that how they're changing these characters, how they're evolving them, it's not a natural growth, it's not a natural character arc. They're forcing and self-inserting their own insecurities, their own ideals onto these characters instead of honoring what came before and building off that. It's lazy, it's stupid, and it's quite frankly insulting to the audience. Now, maybe Kevin Feige will wise up. Doesn't seem like it. I don't think he'll learn anything from Thor, Love and Thunder and Shang-Chi and the Eternals not doing very well at the box office. I mean, well, they do decent, but not well for a Marvel movie. They're not pulling in the returns that even, you know, adjusted for inflation, obviously, they're not pulling the returns that we're seeing, that we did see pre-COVID and pre-Avengers Endgame. I hope that they can get their mojo back. It seems like a lot of people are jumping ship over to DC, but I just don't think that now, because there's a power vacuum there now that J.J. Abrams, it seems like DC is severing its relationship with J.J. Abrams. So I don't see, so there's a power vacuum, and especially now that they finally gave the boot to Zack Snyder, seems like James Gunn is eyeing to take over DC films, and he wants to pull people over from Marvel. And so who knows, we might get a Batman directed by Jon Favreau. That would be fantastic. Or maybe a Justice League film directed by James Favreau. That would be fantastic. Whatever the case, I hope that Marvel Studios wises up, that maybe the Mutants is just going to be the name of the movie franchise itself, you know, as opposed to the X-Men trilogy, whatever the case may be. I hope that Marvel Studios rights the ship, because what they're doing is disastrous. They're only hurting their brand, and they're alienating the actual fans who buy their merch, who buy their comics, who buy their graphic novels, and put butts in the seats at movie theaters. And I just doubt it at this point. They've made too many stupid decisions, but I do hope we get a proper X-Men reboot. If you liked that video, please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Give it a thumbs up, and I would be honored today if you would subscribe. No matter what platform you're watching on, please subscribe, hit that follow button, share it out all over the place, and check me out on some of my other socials. I've got links in the description below. Also, check out my website, StudioJakeMedia.com, and consider supporting this channel on StudioJakeMedia.locals.com. It really helps us smaller creators out. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.